Hello, this is Dr. Mewborn, and this is Religion, the Public Square. We're looking at the topic immigration, and this is part 2 of that series. Our outline is given to us by Wayne Grudem, so let's go ahead and get started in our study today. Typical comments about illegal immigrants have suggested that, and this is what the common issues that people have with illegal immigration or immigration in general. They're taking good jobs away from American-born citizens. They're criminals. Criminal by nature, especially those from Mexico. They drain American resources while giving nothing back. The majority of immigrants are illegal. Mexican immigrants are the blame for all of our illegal immigration problems. And these are a lot of the complaints that people have and things like that. And so as we look in this study of immigration, are all these things true? Are all these things right? It's going to take a lot of unwrapping to understand all that clearly, but I'm trying to give you an understanding. This is what some people think in a very strong way. Another group of people say this, talking about Jesus' response to this. I was a stranger, an immigrant, and you welcomed me in Matthew 25:35. And so Jesus talks about he will welcome you if you so as you did to these people, you were doing to me, that type of teaching. And so, and that comes from the Catholic sisters, apparently. So, and there's a lot of teaching in Catholicism, or a lot of push in Catholicism toward helping illegal immigrants, and not just legal immigrants, but illegal immigrants. And so that's one of the things we'll kind of see as we look through this class today. Here's another thing that somebody has posted. Illegals boycott Arizona, saying, I love Mexico. They live in Arizona, but they're boycotting it. And then here's a guy who's a businessman, says, mission accomplished. What he's saying is people have come here. They don't know the ideals of America and the values and all that type of stuff. And so they just start boycotting Arizona, like places like Arizona, or maybe Florida or California or whatever it might be. And they just start boycotting it because they said, well, I'm not being taken care of, but I've come here illegally. And so that's some of the things. But I want you to see some of these campaign, whether it's a comic or if it's some kind of statement or slogan. I want you to see that because it helps you understand what are the arguments that people are having. Now, we've already looked at what does Wayne Grudem say about this? How does he approach this issue of immigration? Number one, how do you approach it? Make sure that you close the borders, he said. And I've already shown you this slide before with Trump and the wall and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of a funny drawing there, kind of odd. But anyways, you know the problems of open borders. What are those problems? There's no incentive for bettering the United States, allows criminals, all those types of things. Illegal immigrants can often isolate themselves by coming into certain communities. So we talked about that already. Step two, we should enact comprehensive reform of the immigration system. Now, this was kind of done with President Lyndon Johnson, but really it kind of created a system that was very hurtful or harmful to society in many ways. It enabled an endless amount of immigrants to come into America legally through non-beneficial means. So they were coming in legally by connection, like chain migration. They were connected to somebody else, therefore they just came in, and it just allowed a lot of people just to come in just because they were connected, not because they came through a citizenship process. And so that was as Wayne Grudem says, a very big mistake. Step three, enforce tighter regulations on employers regarding illegal immigrants, is what he says. Just see a picture here. The dangers that come when employers hire illegal immigrants. What are they? They can exploit them. They can treat them unfairly. They can give people false security that there are jobs for everyone. And we've looked at this before, but there are many dangers that come when employers just hire anybody they want to. It just becomes a mess in a lot of ways because they can be treated wrongly or unfairly, but also it gives them false security. So those are some things to think about. Now number 6, and this is step 4, what should be done about illegal immigrants who are already here? Wayne Grudem says, deport all known criminals, require immediate temporary registration of some kind for immigrants to receive any service from any facility in the United States, and number C, or letter C, a difficult but possible path to full citizenship. And so he's saying, what should be done about this? Well, if somebody's a criminal, they need to be taken out of the country. They do not have the right to be here. They come in here and all they do is maybe they join a gang or they're part of or some criminal ring or whatever it might be, crime ring. They need to be dealt with in America and they need to be deported as quickly as possible. Um, and then, of course, he talks about that there are other ways that they can get some assistance and maybe looking how can we help this process of them going through. And that's going to take immigration reform. And then, of course, he says a difficult but possible path to full citizenship. I read something interesting the other day. It said that somebody that was trying to come into the country, it took them over 20 years to become a citizen just to come in the right way. But if you came in illegally, it was taking 13 to 15 years to become a citizen, which is really horrible when you think about it. We're expediting those who are illegal to become citizens more so than the ones who are trying to come in the right way. And I just think that that's kind of crazy the way the citizenship and application for to become a citizen really works. It's a very sad process, but that's something I've been looking at a lot lately, and there should be a lot of things done about this. Also, what should American churches do about immigrants? Very big topic here. Well, let's talk first about illegal or legal immigrants. Refer to sojourner in the Old Testament. We already looked at sojourner in the Old Testament. That's referring to somebody that is an alien in the land or a stranger in the land, somebody that's been able to come in. In the Old Testament, if you remember, these people were treated with the utmost respect. These people were allowed to be a part of the community if they benefited the community, if they came in. But if they came in to bring harm, then they would be kicked out and they would be pushed out of the community completely. And so this is talked about a lot with Israelites. They could have people, strangers living with them or aliens coming in, sojourners as they were called, and they could live with them if they bettered the society. And that was the big point for them. Also, how should you treat them? Treat them with the utmost respect. These people might have a different language. These people might have a different I'm talking about first language. These people might have a different look to them, but they should be treated with love and respect as all as you possibly can. Encourage them to assimilate into a church as well as American society. One of the big things is to reach out to people like this and to love them and to encourage them, but help them assimilate into the society, whether it's in the schools, into the churches, doing things that really just make you feel like one, not isolating them into a different area. And so, kind of doing those types of things. Now, also, and this is one of the pictures of somebody being sworn in as an American citizen, which is I think is pretty cool. But talking about illegal immigrants now, what should you do with an illegal immigrant? Well, help them to understand the scripture. That's one of the most important things that we can do. Trying to lead everybody to Christ, you would lead a legal immigrant or illegal immigrant to Christ, just as you would lead a terrorist, if you could, to Christ. I mean, that's what you would want to do, right? No matter what. You want to lead anybody to Christ you possibly can. If it's a gang member, if it's somebody that's harmful to society, or somebody that's really good in society, you'd want to reach out to everybody. So help them understand the scripture, share the gospel with them. Also, Wayne Grudem says, encourage them to support the governing authorities. That we talked about that in Romans chapter 13. They need to support the governing authorities. So that means to come under or submit to governing authorities. If it's illegal to do something in our country, it's illegal for a reason. And illegal means it's against the law. And if that's true, well, then we need to support that because the Bible says we need to submit to governing authorities. And this will be for our good because vengeance is the Lord's. And so we need to consider that. And we need to help other people to understand that as well. And then also share the benefits of being a legal immigrant. So let them know what are the benefits of truly becoming someone that's legal in this country. And there's so many things. There's benefits, there's financial aid, there's ability to vote. There's all kinds of things that you can do in this country by being a citizen. But by being illegal, it causes a lot of issues in an area. And so if you can become legal, that's the best way to go about it. This is an interesting picture that I found. Illegal immigrants claim sanctuary. This is University Presbyterian Church, and this is on the news channel here, and you can see there's a Presbyterian priest person in the back, a lady there, and they're all praying over these illegal immigrants, and they're welcoming them, and they're saying, "Hey, come in. It's fine. It's fine." And we teach a lot of times churches teach it as it's global Christianity. It's everybody's welcome. It doesn't matter where you are. But these churches are within certain bounds of the government. And just because you're part of a church doesn't mean you're above the law. And I think a lot of people think this. This is where systems can break down. There's a separation of church and state, but that doesn't mean that the church can do things unlawful. The church can't have gangs and go hurt people. The church can't um, force people or coerce people to believe things that they don't want to believe. That's just completely against the law. And so it has to be done in a certain way. So churches should be under the law. And when a church tries to get out from under the law and says, no, we can do things however we want to do them because we're a religious entity, that becomes a major problem when we're looking at a country. And so I think you got to be careful when you're thinking about American churches. How do they respond to immigrants, legal and illegal immigrants? And we got to do it in a certain way with compassion, but it's not right to encourage unlawful activity. All right. Um, Here's one of the big things that people speak about. Immigrants are all God's children. This comes from an article that was written by Stephen Turley called "The Imaginative Conservative" by Wyoming Catholic College. And the first line out of this article was Jesus was an illegal immigrant. When he talks about Jesus was a stranger in the land, all that kind of stuff. But really, that's not apples to apples. That is completely a separate entity of understanding a government in general, like the United States, a nation like the United States. And when you start understanding nations, you can understand them clearly in the Old Testament. After all, in the Old Testament, it speaks of many kingdoms. It talks about kingdoms of the Israelites or the nation of the Israelites. It talks about the Babylonians, the Medes and Persians. It talks about the Greeks. It talks about there's all kinds, Romans. It talks about them and how they run things. And even in the New Testament, it says under the Roman rule, after Christ had come, under the Roman rule, we are to live a certain way, and that's submitting to governing authorities. And so Jesus did that. The Apostle Paul did that um, at all times. Only time he didn't is when the law told him, or the government told him to do something that was ungodly, or told them not to do something that God says to do. And that's why some of those guys end up in prison, because they're preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. All right, and so we talked about that before. What about the guest worker program? This is the last thing he brings up. Not a wise idea. It is hard to get people to return to their countries, especially if those living conditions are much worse or even more dangerous. The guest worker program is simply this: people come in for a season, for seasonal work, and then they go back to their homes. So they come in for a period of time, a temporary period of time, then they go back. And Wayne Grudem makes it very clear here that's not a good idea, because there's no incentive for people to go back, and they'll have a hard time returning. Also, research shows that many of these workers in other countries do not assimilate in society. So they come in, they just work, they don't get to know the American culture. They're just in a field with other illegal immigrants. And so that just becomes a very odd thing. Here's a group of folks, I believe they're picking strawberries there. And so it's just this idea, whether this is in California, I don't know where this is, but definitely not Florida. But they're there picking something, and it's just this idea. They're isolated. They live together. They hang out together. They work together. That's their lives. They don't assimilate, is what I'm saying there with society. I want to show you I want to show you this slide. Protestant pastors' views on U.S. immigrants and immigration. Christianity Today, and this is an article based on immigration in the church. 6 in 10 pastors agree, I am in favor of immigration reform that includes a path to citizenship for those who are currently in the country illegally. Of course, I would agree with that. I think we need to be working toward that. That's what we need to do. You can closing the borders, and that's a good thing. That makes you a country. That keeps you a country. That protects you. That's what that does, protecting that. And so there's something very special within this country. But I also believe for those that are already here, and they've been here for probably several years, many of them been here for 10 years, they need to have a path to citizenship. Then the next thing it says, 9 in 10 pastors agree the U.S. government has the responsibility to stop illegal immigration, and I totally agree with that as well. This is one of those things that we need to be careful about, because the more people that come in, your country just begins to change, especially when these people are not assimilating into the country very well. And before you know it, they can come in, they can be the majority, they can begin to boycott things, they can start to change things, and before you know it, you've lost your country because people have come in and just outgrown you. And so that's one of the major things that you have to look at. So America is amazing for many reasons, but if we don't teach those reasons and we don't educate those reasons, and people can just come in and do whatever they want to, well, then what happens is America no longer is America. Actually, it dissolves, and now it just becomes whatever people want it to be, and that's dangerous, and that's not what makes us great. That's what happens to many countries that completely just dissolve, actually lose all power, and so it's just very dangerous. All right. Well, it's good to be with you today. This has been Religion in Public Square, Immigration Part 2, and man, I hope you have a great rest of the day. God bless you. Bye bye.